Perhaps my proudest moment as an American was the moon landing. 10 years after President Kennedy announced the goal of landing on the moon and safely returning to Earth, man did it. An American man. 24 men have been to the moon. 12 men have actually walked on the moon. And every one of them was an American.
As I was walking that river highway, I saw above me the endless highway, and all around me that rolling valley. This land was made for you and me.
I became a United States citizen more than 40 years ago. I remember I was visiting Washington, D.C. I stood inside the Lincoln Memorial and read Abraham Lincoln's words inscribed on the walls. I wept at this deep and lasting emotional experience. I am still overcome just remembering it. For me, pride in the United States is founded in the examples of our founders and great American people since then. Abraham Lincoln was consumed by freedom for all. Just think of these words: that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
We're also the most generous country in the world. Last year, we gave more than $2 billion in non-military aid to several countries in Africa to fight AIDS and malaria and tuberculosis. We even give humanitarian aid to countries that don't like us, like Pakistan and even North Korea.
I didn't vote for Barack Obama, but 4 years ago, when I saw him and his family come out on that Chicago stage to accept the presidency of the United States, there were tears of pride in my eyes. With all the injustices in our nation's history leading up to the Civil Rights Movement, America had actually elected an African American to our highest office. Yes, I had voted for the other candidate, but at that moment, I was so proud to be an American. Did you vote? She asked. Oh my God, what time is it? About 10 to 7. I can just make it, I say, as I rush out the door and down the road to the polling station. I do just make it and cast my vote for the bond issue. Later in the evening, we watch the news, anxiously awaiting the result, when we hear that the school bond issue had passed by just one vote. We could not believe it. I proudly announced that my vote threw it over the top. Wait a minute, she says, that was my vote. In the following days, everyone we talked to claimed to have cast that winning vote.
My family lived in Hawaii, but after Pearl Harbor, we were encouraged to leave for the mainland. So my mother and brother and I found ourselves on a troop ship in a convoy headed to San Francisco. For the entire trip, we had to wear our life preservers, fearful that every drill might signal a torpedo attack. Many children were sick, and mothers were frantic. Many long days and nights later, on a very cold and foggy morning, we finally could see the Golden Gate Bridge up ahead. As the sun came out, some sailors came up on deck with musical instruments and began to play the Star-Spangled Banner as our ship sailed under the bridge. Holding my mother's hand, I saw that she and the other mothers were singing with tears of happiness rolling down their cheeks. Even we young children could feel a sense of being grateful, and were already proud to be Americans.
We arrived in Korea after a bumpy ride from Japan aboard an American troop ship. Many of us new soldiers were high school graduates, were college kids, and it was the first time we had ever left our country and our families. As we lined up to get on a troop train and head toward the war, each of us was deep in his own thoughts. We were thinking of all of the lives lost in World War II, only 5 years earlier. We'd already heard of American casualties here in Korea. Then, after leaving the station, the train seemed to erupt as we all sang some of the popular songs, even those who couldn't hold a key, like me. Then shortly after the singing stopped, another group broke out in God Bless America, and finally our own Army song, When the Caissons Go Rolling Along. Looking back at that time, it might have been the proudest moment of my life.
I remember the shock we all felt more than 50 years ago when Russia launched Sputnik, the first successful satellite in space. I also remember how proud we all felt just a few months later when America launched our own satellite, Explorer 1. We were sitting in the Hollywood Bowl listening to that musician, Muzzy Marcelino, whistling The High and the Mighty. At that very moment, our Explorer slowly passed over the bowl, high in the sky above us. What a magical moment. We were all so proud.
When my son ran for a seat in the state legislature. I walked with him as he knocked on doors, introducing himself and asking people to vote for him. One scene sticks with me. Member of two different families tossing a frisbee across the fence that separated their properties. On the lawn of one home was a sign for my son. On the lawn of the other home was a sign for his opponent. Here they were, two families with different political orientations, each displaying its preferences in public, yet having fun with each other on a Saturday afternoon. I thought to myself, is this a great country or what?
Carefully, we thank you for coming.